Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today's guest is Troy Durfey, comes to us from Alberta, Canada. He is a single dad of 2 adult kids. He's also a carpenter turned book writer who grew up with a single alcoholic mom, used one simple rule to live his life, do the exact opposite of everything he was ever taught. With his growing list of achievements, that philosophy may have paid off. He is also the author of the book, Your Passion Pays. Welcome, Troy. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. So please share with us your story. Who is Troy in your own words?
Who is Troy? With the parenting theme in mind, I'm a mature dad of 2 adult kids. I loved very much parenting. It was a big part of life for me. As a matter of fact, I couldn't imagine life without kids. So tying into your theme of your podcast is it's a special place for me because I believe I was born to be a dad. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good. Also, you mentioned that you were raised by a single mom. What was that experience like? What were some of the challenges that you have experienced?
That is a very deep question, and 1 hour may not be enough time. But I mean, if you can imagine a 16-year-old mom raising kids, right? She had me when she was 16, and alcohol was a big part of our life at the same time. So I actually tried to track my timelines as a child. Very challenging thing to do. We moved at least 12 times before grade 6. It wasn't until grade 7 that my mom actually dug in, started to get a little grounded, and really stayed in one position for a length of time. And she stayed in that house for 30 years and eventually owned the home fully. So I remember the mortgage burning party, but before that, it was absolute chaos, to be honest. There was one time we had, 3 different cities in 1 year, if you can imagine. So that was a part of it. And combined with alcohol, not exactly a lot of solid leadership and role models to emulate, if you know what I mean. So it was a very challenging time, I have to say. Yeah.
If you had a chance to go back in the past and speak to your mom, what would you tell her when you were 16?
That's a great question to think from the perspective of who she was when she passed, because she's no longer with us now. But in those days, I mean, I harbor no animosity towards her parenting style. She was a child. She did the best she could do. So for me, I really have a soft spot for all moms that are struggling, trying to just find themselves and ground themselves. So, and my sister and I differ in opinion on that one, as a matter of fact. She had a hard time letting go and forgiving. And I was able to do that. I believe she did the best she could do with what she had. The one thing she did right with all the chaos, and I mean, I could go into great length about some of the traumas that I've seen with my own eyes, but she always made us feel loved. In some of the darkest times, she would hold us and rock us, and really, there was a mom bond. No matter what was going on, that was there. And I think that was something special that she did well. So I would thank her for that.
That's amazing. That's good. And I know it could be difficult to forgive, especially if you're in the midst of it, but you were able to do so. And kudos to you. How did your experiences growing up shaped into the person you have become?
Great questions. I believe that hardship brings strength. I think I have thicker skin than most. What some people say is a problem, I don't even consider as a problem, right? So what people consider hard just doesn't seem hard to me. So I think I could take a lot of stress, and I actually perform under pressure, as a matter of fact. And I think without those times, that wouldn't have been possible. I think it's made me a stronger, better person, right? Thicker skin and able to cope, and natural coping mechanisms, I think, have been groomed over a lot of years. That hardship has actually made me a lot stronger human. I believe that. Yeah.
All right. So all the positives. Awesome. What were some of the challenges that you had to overcome as a result of, being raised in a single parent household?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is low self-esteem. I mean, when when you move so much, and there's the idea of you don't really ever get close friendship connections. Like, there's circles of friends that have been together since they were in grade school. Well, I never experienced that, right? So it's really hard you get good at meeting people and interacting and all of that, but when you're not in the circle, that means you're out. And sometimes bullying was an issue when I was little. That's a fact. I've experienced that. And so, overcoming was your question, overcoming those obstacles. The idea of, again, that thick skin, the idea of being able to cope, it's really been any obstacles that I consider I had, I call it slayed my demons. I feel like I've worked so hard on myself with positive thinking books, and all kinds of, one little story was, I realized that I never had a solid role model, like a male role model. And I'll never forget the moment. It was like this epiphany moment where I was walking from school and I saw two people walking side by side. And they had this crooked elbow and they were walking to the same beat. And the little boy was the exact same bends in the elbows and the same neck and the same shadow. And they were walking the same. And I remember thinking to myself, I have to learn how to walk. And so the end result of that was I became obsessed on the idea of how am I going to learn to walk, which meant to me, how am I going to find my manhood? How am I going to be ever taught anything in this world when I have nobody to learn from? So I looked at sports and I just thought, well, that's not really what I'm looking for. I considered becoming a police officer and using that for guidance. Not just, the more I thought about it, it wasn't a fit for me. And it was sitting in a restaurant one time and I overheard somebody talking about martial arts. And I thought, I'm physical. I think that might be something that might be helpful. And so I thought, what the heck? And I started searching around our little town, Northern Ontario, right? Little town of 2,400 friendly people. You can't make that up. That was on the actual sign. It's a lot smaller now, mind you. And so I realized, and then almost by magic, I believe in manifestation and energy too. And then suddenly one of my good friends comes up to me and, hey, Troy, there's this Aikido class and in our town, and they have a main club in Dryden, which is 1 hour away. So that would be, would you be interested in trying this out? And I thought, well, what do you call that? It's just perfect timing. So I decided to do it. And it was the best decision I ever made. Suddenly I'm rubbing shoulders with, principals of schools and engineers and military people and CEOs, and not only rubbing shoulders and sweating with these men and bleeding with them, but we were friends. Where else would that be possible, right? So I believe that decision changed my life. Just learn how to walk. And I ended up in a martial arts class, and blood, sweat, and tears over a decade. It was 12, 13 years before I petered off to second degree black belt. I worked hard. We did 4 2-hour classes a week, and this was my life. I never missed. I mean, this was not something that I just was doing to, be some boisterous, aggressive guy, or, to go and win a bunch of trophies, or no, and none of that mattered. I was learning how to walk. It was deeper than that for me. So I never missed a class, and it was the best decision I ever made.
I love it. So would you say that when you saw that walk, was that a catalyst that caused you to, start taking better care of yourself and embark kind of on a different path, would you say?
Yeah, good question. So you see, I've been paying bills since I was 16. I realized at a very early age that I had to get out of where I was if I was going to change. And I can't explain. There's one question that one day I hope somebody can answer for me. I don't know where my innate that ability to be able to reason. Like I believe one of my superpowers is just this common sense brain saying, okay, it's not working here, so something needs to change. So I decided I had to remove myself from that environment, number one. Number two, I was voracious about positive thinking books and just reading everything I could get my hands on. Think and Grow Rich was the first one, and all the Tony Robbins series. I read them top to bottom, and I don't just read a book, I highlight and earmark. And my books are a mess actually from those years. So I tried to absorb the material, right? And so with those things in mind, it's I still I yeah, I slowly lose track of the question sometimes, but
My question
but
was, when you saw the husband and wife and the kid walking, was that a catalyst that caused you to change your life, or to start exploring in different direction?
So yes and no. Yeah, that was one big one. There's many. I have had many epiphany moments in my life, and that was a big one. It's like I can't explain the feeling when the earth just seems to just stand still and nothing else goes through your mind. And it's like this all-encompassing energy feeling, almost like a tingle in your body, where I have to learn how to. I'll never forget that day. But so it was a big one. Absolutely, it was. Yeah, yeah. And there's more. I have more.
I'm sure, because we always change. We never stay the same. Every 6 months, our values, our belief system change, and what was relevant 6 months ago could no longer be relevant. And the lessons or the struggles that you faced before, you probably laugh at them now because you have grown kind of mentally, emotionally, and so on. So
absolutely,
totally, I agree with you. And now let's shift a little bit. As you grew up, and you also is single dad. So what was that like? What has happened that led? And feel free to share as much. I'm not pushing you to share more than you are able. Whatever you're comfortable with. So.
Well, so yeah, being a dad. I mean, to me, if this thing that we call life, I couldn't imagine experiencing it without parenthood. I mean, so much of our DNA and our genetics. I mean, I'm very much a nature guy. I love hiking in nature and all of that stuff. I mean, a lot of our stuff is procreation. It's this, the mama bear instinct in mums I've seen many, many times. You don't mess with a mom and her babies. I don't care what species you are, right? So that in mind, I felt that kind of compelled to be a dad. I really did. I just knew I was going to be a father. And I dedicated my life and career. I actually chose to be a realtor because it was the only career I could think that I had flexibility to be with my kids. So I was the dad that walked them to daycare. I was the dad that walked my little girl to school. I'll never forget the day that changed. She rips her hand out and I look down at her. What are you doing? And she says, Daddy, not in front of my friends. And I'm like, well, I'm still your father. I didn't know what to say. So, I mean, that moment, right, where they start to just, grow up a little bit. But I mean, I hosted the coolest Halloween parties. We had feeling boxes all through the house and a haunted house downstairs with my boy hiding with fishing lines, shaking curtains. Like, I loved being a father. I loved it. And I couldn't imagine life without it. So those years were great. Loved every second. And my career again, I mean, yeah, okay, there was the odd time weekends and evenings as a realtor. You had to, make things work, but I didn't know a dad that spent more time with their kids. And I'm very proud to say that.
Yeah. It's awesome. Awesome. I love that. What about when you became a single dad? What were some of the challenges you faced? Did anything changed for you from where you were before to what happened after?
Good question. I mean, so with me, with being a single dad in adulthood, I actually did see a couple episodes of your podcast and talking about divorces, right? Well, divorce for me was a couple $100 at a courthouse and a very amicable solution to kid rearing. It was, and like it or not, this was our schedule: 2 days on, 2 days off. And whoever got the Friday got the weekend. That was a decade. Like you could literally set your watch by that. If you wanted to make a change 6 months down the road, you just do the math on I mean, it was and some people said, well, every 2 days, isn't that interruptive? And then I've seen other people say a month on, month off, when they need 3 days to just adjust to their new surroundings. So I'm not convinced that there's any negatives one way or the other. I mean, at some point, kids are very adaptive, but I lived in the same community. every 2 days. It was like both were homes. I feel like it worked out really, really well. They were really well adjusted. And that, I mean, when it comes to divorce, quite honestly, I think that people get very selfish in divorce. This is my opinion on this. They put themselves ahead of the kids. They put their needs ahead of the kids. They put their finances ahead of the kids. If you really focus on the kids' needs and what's best for them, I think that divorce would go a lot smoother for a lot of people. I firmly believe that in my heart. So it's one of those things that as a parent and talking out every possible issue, financial, visitation, all these things, it went pretty smoothly, I have to say. I really do. And the kids were very well adjusted. And there was a period, okay, of course, where the idea of divorce that they had to absorb, that mommy and daddy aren't going to be together anymore. And it was literally the hardest decision I've ever made because I'm the one who initiated divorce. And I'm aware of the stats. 75% of women tend to be the ones that initiate. It's one of those things that you have to make a decision. You have to decide, is an unhealthy relationship the way you want to present yourself to your children? Or do you tough it out and try to keep this family solidarity and make that the primary focus and value? Not an easy decision. It was tough for me. It was tough, but in the end, in my heart, good, bad, or ugly, it is what it is, all those things. I decided that, presenting an unhealthy relationship was not the way I wanted them to grow up. And so once that decision was made, and once we'd ironed out all the kinks with the whole D word thing, with the visitation of money and all that stuff, I got to say it wasn't so bad. I mean, challenges as in normal life, but anything in particular. I think the biggest challenge was leading up to that point. After that, pretty smooth sailing from my position.
Awesome. So, given your experience, what kind of advice can you share with single parents who are going through this journey?
Single parents, newly single, in other words, they have no experience being a single parent.
Yes, suddenly single.
Suddenly single. There's a book right there. Suddenly single. That's good. That's an awesome title. If I was going to advise, I'm not sure I feel qualified to advise anybody, but I mean, I think the biggest advice I would give is to keep the kids first. I mean, to really make them the focal point, right? So easy to, get sidetracked on our own needs and goals and values and dreams about this world. And then suddenly the kids are like they're on a leash, just sort of tagging along for the ride. And I've seen that so many times with friends. I mean, sadly, a lot of people that I know have been through divorce. And, everybody's a critic, is one man's opinion. But I think that a lot of people are from a selfish point of view, and they don't really give the kids enough consideration, enough focus when they're going through this journey. So I would say, you know what, just really focus on the kids, and it's not easy for them. They're adaptable, they're all that, but it's not easy for them. So you really have to come from an empathetic point of view and really understand how they're feeling and try to help them get through it. We're going through stuff too as adults. We all have emotions and feelings. How does a child feel? Right. And I think people need to just reflect on that more often. Yeah.
How young or old were your kids when the divorce happened?
They were right around 10, 12 years old, right? And like around that middle age sort of. I thought that might be a very challenging age. I wasn't sure. Again, decisions, right? I mean, I didn't know if you study things. You hope that you're making the right decision. Are they young enough? Are they old enough? You try to make all these things. Like I gave those kids so much thought on that decision, it wasn't even funny. And at the end, if I had any regrets, I might have done it sooner. Right? You try to work, you try to make things work in the counseling, and you try to do all that. And at the end of the day, I'm thinking that the older the kids are, probably the harder it is for them to adjust, outside of mature kids that are almost adults. But at the age they're at, I almost wondered if I would have done it sooner, that they might have, maybe that would have been better for them. So that falls under advice. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe sometimes it's better to, end a bad situation sooner rather than later. Um, for all it's worth, I'm not sure that's sound advice, but for, hindsight being 2020, I might have applied that rule to my life.
Yeah. Usually we can only, trace the picture back when we look back, but when we're in it, we don't know.
You can't read the label when you're in the jar.
Yes, totally, totally. So,
Yes.
Heiko, what led you? You're also the author. What led you to write the book, Your Passion Pays?
Reflecting on all those years of me filling my brain with these positive thinking ideas. And I've had notes, chicken scratch notes. I used to leave a pad beside my bed, and I'd wake up at 2, 3, 4 in the morning and I'd write stuff down, and then I'd go back to sleep. Well, this book has been a long time coming, but it was actually a couple years back. I fell off a high 2-story roof onto frozen ground. And I've heard of so many accidents where guys, have died. Guys have been like put in a wheelchair permanently for the whole life. And this little finger is the only thing that happened. It broke. And I basically wrapped it with tape and finished my day of work. But besides that, I got off of that roof and I was rattled inside. I can't explain the feeling. It was something that, if that's an epiphany moment, it wasn't a moment. It was a 30-day cycle that my brain was churning, where you feel like you're in the world, but you're not, where, you're going through the motions, but not really ever connecting with anybody. I knew something in me was stirring. And the end result was I just knew I had to change my life. I'm still active in renovations now. I have my own company. That's what I do. But that book, I just knew. I said, I have to write that book. I have to write this book. All these ideas started pouring out of my head. And I started compiling all my chicken scratch notes. And I mean, oh, what a mess. Like 2.5 years, right? I didn't just spit this out on AI in a weekend. You know what I mean? This is my life. There's life stories that tie achievement principles. But the root of the book was that fall, yes. But one of the big motivations for the book was a high percentage, I would say. I'm trying to tread lightly, but a high percentage of the people that I know are not necessarily happy with their chosen endeavors for career. Okay. That's about as political as I could say that, right? Some people hate their jobs. I know executives. I know, people that dig ditches, and I know everything in between. I have laborers I hire. They have these amazing, passionate hobbies, like they're Bitcoin experts, or they're artists, or they build furniture, or this one guy was into candles and bees. And I've met so many cool guys with hobbies, but they're doing this labor job for me and not loving life. Right. And so many people are just not happy. So I thought, well, you know what? I've always been a guy that if I'm not happy with something, I change it. I think that no fear mentality. I've faced wolves, cougars, sharks, hiked mountaintops in the world. I've been 120 feet below the ocean. I mean, I've done pretty well everything to challenge myself and my fear level. But so many people are scared to just take their life and mold it and take the risk that is going to pay off in so many ways that they can't even imagine, right? So I just honestly feel that I have that innate in me, and that combined with my life passion for life with, scuba. I'm an advanced open water scuba diver. I have second degree black belt. I'm a proud father of 2. That's a huge accomplishment in my opinion. I've ran businesses. I've had sales jobs. I've been a realtor. I've done different things. And whenever I want to change a career, just do it. I don't think about it. I just do it. So why can't people be more like that and just be happy with their lives? So that's what Your Passion Pays is all about. It's really teaching people how to be happy. And at the end result, I have a foundation framework finishing. It's 3 chapters in each section. And, the first section goes into the inner workings and how you think. And I have my own take on some things. Of course, I have ideas, right? Like the voices inside your head. I don't say there's one voice. I say there's a couple different voices and they do different things, right? I mean, I have a life acronym, LIFE, learn and improve forever. That's my true happiness, is always trying to improve myself. So I created an acronym that hopefully helps people with that, and so the book basically is all about a system that teaches people how to be happy. And that is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I mean, I really want to help people. Nothing else matters.
I love it. I'm actually writing a book with kind of similar premise, 12 Steps to Happiness or The Gift Inside.
Great. That's fantastic. And, there's so many different takes on these ideas, right? Bottom line, you have to decide what you want to do. Do you want to just coast or do you want to live? Right? I choose to live. And I can only hope that that energy rubs off on other people.
Yes, totally, because most of our lives we live asleep at the switch, just going through daily
Yes.
motions, fulfilling daily obligations because of how we were preconditioned as we growing up. You're supposed to go to school, start a family, get a job, get a career, work at that career. They don't say if you were supposed to be happy or satisfied, just work through, get to the retirement, then do what you want and waste all your years when you're young, when you have the energy, when you have the resources to pursue your life. We choose to put it kind of on the back burner, thinking that we have another day, we're going to do it later. But our life here is so short-lived. We have such, like, on the tombstone, there is 2 dates and a dash in between, and that dash is a life. And then if we don't kind of, and it's very short, but we think we have a lot of time.
I saw an amazing analogy with that. That's great stuff. The idea that, your early years are so many, right? Like say, if you want to pick the number like 15, 20, whatever, before you start your working years. So you're enjoying those first 20, and then your last 20 are supposed to be retirement in a perfect world. Not everybody gets that, but in a perfect world. So you have this little bit of time on each end, and then the rest of your life is just work and stress and dealing with problems and all the other things. Well, no, like what if you design a job that you don't work because you're happy there? So, the idea of TGIF, thank God it's Friday. I say thank God it's Monday because I'm happy every day because I love what I do, right? That's the idea. It's this mentality that you look forward to the weekend all the time. That's not happy people that came up with that slogan. It's not happy people. I'm telling you, I know. Right. I was one of them. I've been in a lot of crappy jobs in my life. Right. So it's just the idea of changing that mentality and really trying to, like you said, that those middle years are where your life is occurring. So it's very, very important that you put some weight on trying to enjoy those years and not just slug it out. Right. Absolutely agree. I can hardly wait to read your book.
Yes, it's been also 3 years in the making as well, just like.
Oh, good for you.
Didn't
That
happen
means it's going to
overnight.
be a good book. It's going to have substance. So good job.
Definitely, yes. So speaking of that, what is do you have a single passion or are you passionate about many things?
Life is my passion, but I believe in a dream board and these kinds of things. But really my main passion is I just want to help people. When I fell off of that roof, I realized, okay, it's a warm and fuzzy feeling that I could use my hands and create a deck, that adds enjoyment to their living space. And you picture family parties, and that's great, and that's warm and fuzzy. It's just not quite what I have in mind when I say help people. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
so adding the aesthetics to a house is a thing that I believe in, right? Like you want to feel comfortable and feel good about your surroundings, and that's great. No, I want to change people's lives for the better. And that's what I really, really want to do. And it's funny, but I have, I built up a launch team of like 130 people, like for the book. And then I was bouncing chapters off them one by one as I was writing it. Well, they gave me a nickname. They call me the Inspired Carpenter. That was by them to me. So now I'm starting to run with it, right? So the Inspired Carpenter. So it's there's a couple people that I could honestly say that I've given, some of my so-called wisdom or advice to guide them in a certain direction. And they're thanking me profusely saying, wow, that you really gave me something that helped my life. Thank you very much for that. One person happens to be in the hospital a lot these days with advanced liver disease, and it's somebody that leads a very vibrant life typically, right? Like out hiking and doing stuff, and now they're bedridden, and it's really hard for them to understand this world and why them, and these kinds of thoughts. So I created an affirmation list for them. And it's a healing. I even forget the title I put on it, but it's all about healing. And healing, as we know, as I believe in my heart, is not always about physical. So some of the affirmations I put in there, for instance, one might have been along the lines of, you forgive people that have given you wrongdoing. This, and I had a long paragraph on that idea. Well, they started crying when they read it. And it's very sentimental to me too, because I've been through some of these healing journeys. So now, after reading it several days in a row, a couple weeks later, they can read that section and they don't cry anymore because they realize that they've actually forgiven that person for doing them something wrong in their past. I mean, that's amazing. I feel like I was born to do this. I feel like I have a lot to give to people. I really do.
Good. That's good. And I
Yeah.
think forgiveness is powerful, and oftentimes it's difficult when you're in the middle of it. But when we forgive, it's not, we're not doing it for anybody else. We're first of all doing it for ourselves. It allows us to step freely and to live our daily life and live and breathe, as opposed to carry that heavy baggage. There is a great analogy. If you were trying to hold a brick for a minute, how would you feel? It's going to be probably okay. But what if you hold it for a half an hour? A little bit more difficult. But what if you hold it for a whole day? Your hand probably will go numb, and in the end you will drop that brick. And this is what we do with our emotions, with our this baggage that we carry, with the injustices. We carried it for decades on end, and this could be a small event that happened over 3 minutes, but we hold on to it for dear life. We hold it as a prized possession, and we live our life with it. This what happened. Instead of just letting it go. Because when emotions are not diffused, when they're not released, they can be lodged in our bodies and create a disease. They can create a temperament.
Absolutely.
And the person then switches, like let's say they were happy and positive, and all of a sudden they are this other complaining, and they can change.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying
people
it's
underestimate.
easy, but it's possible.
People underestimate the idea of holding mental friction and what that does to your physical body. People underestimate that. I really firmly believe that if you work on those mental frictions and just releasing that energy, you're going to be a lot healthier in the physical sense, right? Not only do you feel better about yourself from a mental standpoint, but your physical body will feel better. So in this one case, at least, I can say that that's been the case, right?
Yes, yes. And that's awesome when you are able to see the result right in front of your eyes.
I love it. I love it. I was born to do this. I absolutely believe that.
Awesome. Awesome. What would you say is your superpower?
Superpower. Well, we talked about my thick skin quite a bit. I really do believe that I handle pressure and conflict and obstacles better than most people. I really do believe that. Also, I have a very good common sense brain where, just the idea of, I mean, I think of always the balance, right? Like there's no perfect human. Like I can't remember names to save my life. I don't know what it is. The harder I focus, the less it sticks. It's just one of these things. I can't explain it. But, there's certain times with the big picture and the analysis and just understanding of situations and awareness of my surroundings. That's a gift. I believe that is a superpower. I have a very good awareness. And from a physical and mental sense, I usually can understand situations pretty clearly to be able to base a decision on. And many wrong decisions, but at the very least, I have a whole chapter of my book is dedicated to mistakes. I believe that people should make more of them, right? If you're not making mistakes, you're not growing, you're not acting, you're not engaging in your life. So you should make more mistakes as much as possible, frankly, right? It's where you start repeating the same mistake that, problems can occur. And I actually categorize mistakes in my book and different things. So a whole chapter dedicated to mistakes. So yeah. And so I say that laughing that I talk about my own mistakes pretty openly because I mean, hey, if you're human, you probably made a few. I hope you have at least. That means you're living.
Yes, I think what happens as we get older, we are afraid to make mistakes. But if we go back when we were just started to learn how to walk, we didn't care. We would make a step, we would fall down. At least in my case, I would sit and wait until somebody picks me up. But we never stopped. Like, no matter how horribly we fell, we never stopped trying. We would continue to keep going until we figure out how to walk and then run. But as we get older, as we faced with challenges or obstacles or something didn't work the first time, we suddenly so quick to give up on ourselves. So quick to kind of, oh, let me not do that anymore. Because we have this fear, self-imposed.
Yes, absolutely.
So making mistakes, make them more, make them often, make them sooner, learn from them, and then make it better decision next time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, make more.
Yes. Are there any fun projects you're working on that you'd like to share?
Fun projects? I'm having some, like, you've experienced me with the technicalities of trying to make things work in this world, right? So, the idea of marketing still fascinates me. Like, I'm building my first ever sales page. How cool is that? So for me, that's fun. I actually posted recently a 9-part video series that I call Propel Your Potential. And I'm just playing with media and trying to, this is like a bit of a pre-promotion for the book. Each video is under 90 seconds and it ties to one specific idea about my book. And so that's a fun little pet project. It's 3 videos per week are going out for 9 videos, and that was the first 3 weeks. And I'm planning a launch for May 30th, as a matter of fact. In this, I'm just curious, now that I said that out loud, should I be talking in present tense? Because this is airing later. You can edit that out, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's coming out in October, I believe, sometime in
Yeah, so I should be talking like my book is already here then? Okay, mental note.
It's like, no.
That's a little bit of a head trip, actually. I'm trying to work my head around that, but okay. All right. See, talking about mistakes.
That's not a problem.
You're a good editor, right?
I'm learning.
Yeah, so so that's a fun project, the Propel Your Potential video series. And I just created that in a day and did recordings in one day for 9 videos. And so I just sort of made that happen. It's a little pet project. But besides that, I'm really excited just to really get the word of the book out there. And that's where my heart is. I really want to do more of helping people stuff. And the book is the cornerstone of all of that, right? So yeah, I want to teach people how to live with passion, and I believe I'm capable and competent at it. So
Awesome. You seem like a passionate guy, so kudos to you.
Thank you.
Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
Not really. I mean, it's just a crazy world. The idea of, going full circle with the parenting and what you can learn from that. I mean, kids have taught me so much. And one of the life lessons I used to teach my kids, right, talking about, trying to give them self-worth. And I believe that's one of the more important qualities to give children is self-worth, the feeling of self-respect. They weren't allowed to say can't around me. I just made a rule and said, you're not allowed to say can't. And they would say, oh, I can't do this. Well, yeah, from very, very young, like they were only barely talking. And then they get the hang of it after a while. They'd say the word can't in a sentence. I'd say, no, you know the rules. You're not allowed to say that word. They go, okay, Daddy. I say, so what do you mean? And they would come up with another way to say the same thing, except without using that word. They say something like, oh, I can't, oh, no, I caught myself again. I'll do it better next time. Or when I learn more, I'll be able to do it better. Or they'd always find a different verbiage to be able to. I just think it's such a self-defeating word, can.
You're right.
Just the energy that you're given to the universe by saying that word out loud is just self-deflating, self-defeating, and taking away all of your power. You're giving up control of that aspect. Whereas, again, if you just simply try to wrap your mind around the idea of saying it in a different way, communicating whatever it is you're feeling without saying that word. And you'll be surprised what even, grade school kids can come up with, right? And so that has become a part of who they are, right? And so one simple little lesson for kids. So, what kids can teach you, what you can teach them. Sometimes parenting is about what you're learning and not what you're teaching, right? There's often you can make mistakes with kids and think, whoops, I maybe shouldn't have done that. And then, and then you're going to try to do it better next time too. So, it's part of the martial arts journey too, is when you get to a higher rank, you start doing a bit of teaching. And when you're trying to instruct on an idea versus doing it, it comes from a different part of the brain. You have to think differently to be able to present that information. So, with parenting and kids, those lessons go hand in hand too, I think. So if for all it's worth, yeah, that's something else I had in my mind.
That's awesome. And I love that. I think it's important. And the fact that you kind of taught it to your kids at the early age, that's amazing. There are a lot of words, and it's all how we speak to ourselves kind of shape the life we are living. And that word is, I think it's a great example. People should implement it. And should is another bad word.
Should. Yeah. Yes. There's all kinds of ways we can improve our conversations, right? So, yeah. Think from empowering and action oriented. Yeah, the whole last section of the book, 3 chapters are dedicated to action. I put the mistakes in the action category, but yeah. So I believe in action. Just make it happen, right?
Yes. If people would like to find you, connect with you, learn more, where would they go?
So I have the site yourpassionpays.com. It's not active yet. It will be by the time of the airing of this video. It'll be active, yourpassionpays.com. And of course, Facebook with, I have just a Passion Pays, Facebook Passion Pays. And I'm on TikTok too. So you could get me almost everywhere. Troy Durfey with TikTok. So that would be the main ideas there. My main name, Troy.Durfey3, is for Facebook tagline. Those are the contact sources. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wisdom, and we will include everything in episode notes so people can connect with you directly.
Thank you very much. It's been great, Irina.